as we roll into this new year, and here to lay out the pros and cons of leasing versus buying or getting a used vehicle is Ed Siddell, CEO and Chief Investment Advisor at EGSI Financial. Ed, it's great to have you on the show, and I know during the pandemic, a lot of people were in the market for a new car, but they had trouble finding one, or at least perhaps couldn't afford one. How have the supply chain issues been corrected since then?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. And they really have. Now there's a surplus, and you can tell when you go by car lots, they're full, and not just new car lots, but used. Because if you remember during that time period, it was almost as much money for a used car as it was for a new. So the supply is so much that prices on both new and used have really dropped significantly just in the last year, especially since the high.
Well, considering rates these days, what are the advantages of buying a new vehicle?
You know, when you're buying a new vehicle, you know what you're getting. It has factory warranty, but you're paying a price for that new car, and that's going to be pretty steep, especially when you look at that very first year. It's going to depreciate 20%. But that's the advantage of a new car. You know what you're getting. You're the first owner. No one's driven it. It has all the factory warranties and all the bells and whistles. And you can actually pick and choose what you want if you order it.
And unfortunately, I think your audio was dropping at times for me. Hopefully it wasn't for our viewers. But what are car price projections looking like for next year? And do you anticipate that they'll be on the rise?
No, actually, I think car prices are down significantly year over year. New car prices from a year ago, they're down 3.5%. Used car prices are down 20% from the high and 5% just from a year ago, December. And I think that trend, we're going to continue to see that going through 2024. I think we're going to continue to see those prices go low just because there's such a surplus of vehicles.
What are some of the pros and cons of leasing?
When you look at leasing versus buying, it becomes more of a budgetary thing, right? So you're going to pay less on a per month for a leased vehicle than if you were to buy that exact same vehicle outright. But the cons are, at the end, basically what you're doing is you're just renting that vehicle, and at the end of that term, you have to give it back, and then you start all over again. Whereas with a vehicle, that when you buy it, whether it's new or used, it's yours at the end of the term. The other thing is, when you're looking at a leased vehicle, some of the things you have to be aware of is you have set mileage as per that contract. And so if you're only able to, if you're driving 15,000 miles a year, but your lease says you're only able to drive 8 to 10, maybe even 12,000, you want to make sure that you're not paying for that vehicle twice because that monthly cost could increase or almost double based on the per mile charge.
So do you think for viewers tuning in that buying a used car is a better option?
It is. I'll use myself as an example. I've never bought a new car. I always like to buy a car that's 1 year old, that has 12 to 15,000 miles on it, because that first year it depreciates about 20%. So whoever bought that vehicle that first year already took the depreciation. Those are the vehicles that typically come off of lease. And every year thereafter, those vehicles, they depreciate about 15%. So at the end of 5 years, that vehicle is worth 40% of the original purchase price. So if you buy a used vehicle, you're coming out ahead, especially if it's a year or two old, because it's still under factory warranty.
What should people look out for when they do buy used? Maybe some red flags, even some green flags.
I'm a big believer in running a Carfax, using a third-party vendor to make sure that the maintenance has been done as scheduled, that there aren't any accidents and hasn't been stuck in a flood or anything along those lines. Because based on that VIN, it's going to tell you exactly what that car has been through. The other thing that you want to look at is you want to make sure that you're not buying a vehicle that has a high cost of maintenance on an annual basis. So if you have a vehicle and the annual maintenance that's scheduled is, $1,000, $1,500 per year, you want to make sure that you're including that into your budget.
What about car insurance? Of course, I think those prices are rising too. How should people
They
budget
are.
for that?
That's a great question. I mean, that's a little out of my wheelhouse when it comes to car insurance, but all insurance across the board is going up. But the one type of insurance that most people don't think about is the gap insurance. So the gap insurance is, what you originally paid for the vehicle. And, let's just say that you're in an accident and you total the vehicle. There could be a gap in what the insurance company is going to pay you and what you owe. So if you don't have a gap insurance policy as part of your car insurance, you could have to come out of pocket for that, and it could be really expensive. So you want to make sure that that's part of your budget as well.
Okay, any final tips on how to stretch your dollar when considering leasing or buying a vehicle, Ed?
Yeah, if you're leasing, make sure the devil is in the details. Understand exactly what you're getting, understand the amount of miles that you're able to drive, and what the cost per mile is over and above those miles that you're allowed. The other thing that you want to look at is the residual value of the car. So at the end of the lease term, you want to know what it is that you're actually going to be paying for that vehicle. So you have the option of buying it out or turning it in. Whereas, when you're buying a vehicle, at the end, it's yours. And again, I'm a big believer in buying either a certified pre-owned vehicle or a vehicle that's a year or two old that's still under factory warranty, because you're getting the biggest bang for your buck.
All right, Ed Siddell, thank you so much for the tips. Good to know heading into the holidays.